Howdy, how are you?
Howdy?
Yeah.
All right. Is
Yeah.
everything good in the Western Front?
I'm wearing a jacket.
Oh shit, that's not a Western, is it?
That's a war film.
I keep forgetting.
She's very uncultured
I'm very tired.
and uncultured.
I go overseas in like 25 days. Leave me alone. It's a big deal. On the same line of thought, or train of thought, Black Panther,
Wakanda
Forever, which is what we're actually here to talk about.
Yes.
Big movie.
The biggest movie on at the moment, a movie that I think everyone and their mum will go see.
Yep, end of phase 4 for the MCU, a very chaotic phase. Lots
to unpack here.
And Namor was getting introduced. That's what we knew going in.
Basically.
I will also say it is bizarre that this literally has Namor and a focus on Atlantis but not Atlantis. And then Avatar 2 is about to come out, which is also very water-based. And then Aquaman will shortly be following.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if we're comparing just directly, Namor's kingdom in this film to Avatar, God, I think Marvel must be just like so happy that they got there first this year.
I mean, it's the same company.
Fuck, it is.
Yeah. One word review. Hit us.
Wait. Spelt W-E-I-G-H-T.
I would hope that Edit Rob would know what you meant.
I've got to clarify for Edit Rob sometimes.
And mine was specifically the meme of Captain Holt in Brooklyn Nine-Nine when he goes, "Vindication!"
Which we'll get into.
Yes, which is absolutely correct, and no one should have any qualms about it. Anyway, let's get into it. I feel like you should go first because this movie meant more to you in the lead up than it did me.
I think you're right in saying that it meant a lot more to me going in because I was obviously very nervous because of how much I loved the original Black Panther. Coming out of this, I kind of, it's very hard to describe the emotion I was feeling, but it probably does end up in that I loved this film. It deeply affected me on an emotional level.
Should I leave you alone for a minute?
In many ways. And the more I think about it, the better it gets. I can leave it there for now. Let's go with you.
I liked it.
Yep.
End of video. Yes, it's a very emotional movie. It's very clearly working on two levels. It is both trying to pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman and Black Panther, the actor, and T'Challa and Black Panther, the character, while at the same time trying to also set up this kind of new direction it's going in. So there's a lot it's needing to do. Yes, it's got 2 hours and 40 minutes, but I think weight's a good word for it. You do feel the weight of it all. From a viewer's perspective, there's a lot going on. And you can also see that from a filmmaker's perspective, there was a lot clearly going on in Ryan Coogler.
Yes.
Like, you can feel that grief, you can feel that emotional tenderness behind the camera and also behind the representation of character as well.
I mean, I think the thing is, I've seen a bit of the discourse around the film and, a lot of this, right? And one of the most, frustrating things I've heard people say or seen people say is that like, the film doesn't work because Chadwick is no longer there and it's got like a Chadwick-shaped hole in the center.
Of course it does.
No, but like I disagree. I didn't feel that. Like to compare to something I've brought up before, The Dark Knight Rises has a Heath Ledger Joker-shaped hole in it because they do not address the character's existence in any way.
Yeah.
Even though every moment they bring up the events of the previous film, you definitely would in reality bring up the Joker's existence. The fact that the film's themes and story, at least for me, had an extra layer of heartbreaking nuance because they were all born from the grieving process. It's almost like the film, by the end, gave me the meaning that it is saying, look how easily the world can plunge into chaos when we do not have honorable leaders. Right under your nose, Shuri wasn't actually becoming another Black Panther, another T'Challa, she was becoming another Killmonger, and which was genius, by the way that they basically subverted your expectation of where her arc was.
I mean, I knew that's the direction it was going from the start.
I know.
I saw the whole like vengeance is not the answer thing happening.
I thought like I was just as surprised as she was that Killmonger was who she saw in the ancestral plane. I feel like you
kind of, and I say this with love, I feel like you kind of lost some of your like film, I don't know, like
analysis.
Cinephile knowledge, like which is in a good way, where it's like you kind of gave yourself over to the film where that was all left behind, where maybe ordinarily you would be able to pick up on all this stuff. Because
I don't disagree, because it is something I said to you in our Thor review, which is you were pointing out how I was finding nitpicky things. Now, there's always things you can nitpick in every single movie. My belief is that if you're getting swept up in the characters and the story and the emotion and the themes and the general presentation of the film, you're not going to be noticing nitpicks. For instance, The Dark Knight, and I love The Dark Knight, it's one of my favorite comedy movies of all time, has tons of plot holes. Do they affect the enjoyment of the film? Not even in the slightest, because it has incredible pacing, incredible characters, incredible performances, incredible thematics. This film, similar to the Dark Knight example, my mind wasn't wandering, so those little nitpicks aren't bothering me.
This entire phase, from WandaVision until Black Panther Wakanda Forever, has been an analysis, a deep dive, and just a processing of grief and of trauma caused by the previous phase. Everyone's displaced, no one knows where they belong, and everyone's having to deal with it. Even Shang-Chi, an origin story, is literally about how he doesn't really have a place in the world, and then his dad's trauma is literally going to potentially end the world. So this is all this, and then it ends with the biggest representation of grief and trauma and sadness, which is Chadwick Boseman / T'Challa's passing and the after effects of that. That even before Chadwick passed, this story was always meant to be an exploration of grief, just it was meant to be of grief of time lost.
The thing is that if the movie was supposed to be about him, mourning the time lost during the snap, that weirdly would have annoyed me personally about some of the things I love about the original Black Panther, which is you can just watch it as a film on its own. It does not need, like, I know you disagree and think that you need to have seen Age of Ultron or Civil War to get what's going on in Black Panther, but the way that Claw is introduced in the original Black Panther, the way T'Challa and Wakanda are introduced, it may as well be their first appearance. They're introduced as if like, oh, here's a guy with a robot arm. Here is T'Challa. They give you the background of what happened to his dad. He was killed at a UN. The guy's been caught. It's just background context in the same way that we didn't need a prequel movies of Star Wars to explain Darth Vader. So the original Black Panther was just a film. You can watch it removed from everything else. So I appreciated that this film was playing a similar game, in my opinion, and even the elements that are thrown in there to lay pipe for what's coming in other phases, like the Riri Williams Ironheart show and Thunderbolts and all that stuff. The way that it is introduced in this film, they just felt like pieces functioning within this story, and if there were hanging threads, like the stuff with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, it actually just kind of felt like it may as well just be picked up in a Black Panther 3. This film doesn't really feel like it's in a holding pattern for other Marvel projects. At any point, it feels like it's in a holding pattern for its own trilogy.
Now, again, I like this film. I want this on record. Rob, I want you to emphasize bold. I liked this movie.
Say it again so I got it.
I liked this movie. Okay. I really liked this movie. I think it's one of the better films of the phase. Having said that, I wouldn't say I loved it. There were moments in the movie where I could feel myself analyzing it. And that doesn't happen when I love a movie. Similar to what you just mentioned, if I love a movie, I get into it. I still got into it a lot. There were definitely plenty of moments where I was literally sitting in front of my seat. I want to touch on the pacing, which for me was the biggest part of it that took me out of it. There were many scenes where I felt like they just ended. There was no space to breathe. There was no the transition wasn't as smooth as it could have been. It felt like we were just going from one bit to another at times just to get to that point.
I can see what you're saying, because the film structurally, it's like has a fairly traditional first act, a very extended second act, with a lot of just
and
character
then a very
development.
Short third
yeah,
act.
like the second act's just a lot of character development, story development, idea development, feeling development, and then the second act ends with a banging action scene where Ramonda gets killed, and then you got the third act, which is like traditionally paced. Yeah. I recognize the scenes did just sort of like declarative finish, move to the next one.
Yeah,
but it didn't bother me because those scenes were played out, I thought, to a degree where I could enjoy the performances. That's the thing. I still
enjoyed the scenes. I think I just had a problem with the editing of them. Like, I think for me, the film editing wasn't. When you compare it, which you will, as a sequel to the first one, I think as well this should be said.
The first one's much tighter.
One's not just tighter. I think it's just a better film. I think the story's more cohesive.
It is a better film.
I think the characters, but I also think the editing is much more fluid. Like, even the fight scenes, like, I feel like as I was really getting into him, they ended, and I was just
I think the reason I recognize all that, because the thing about this film where the pacing feels different, in my opinion, is because it was a slight shift in genre. The first film is closer in line with that of a superhero origin, hero's journey story, whereas this film, from minute one, it was reminding me, in terms of the editing, it was reminding me of something like a David Lean movie.
What I meant when you can see kind of Ryan Coogler's just anguish in this movie is I could feel it in the way that the filmmaking was done, in the way that the writing was done. Like, I could feel his grief. I could feel his I feel that Shuri a lot is a reflection of his own feelings, like throughout the movie, where he's angry that he doesn't, because he was very close with Chadwick Boseman, and I can feel that anger, I can feel that sadness, and
that's part of what made it such a great lift for me, because I was feeling like, more so than most Marvel movies, more so than any of them recently, like, this was steeped in his identity and his style and
but
his
it also
feeling.
To me then felt that it was just missing, like, it was kind of missing that twinkle. I don't know what it was. There was something where the movie, it ended and I just was like, yeah, it was good, instead of being what I wanted it to be. And that could be entirely on my expectations. I'm not entirely certain.
By twinkle, do you mean like sort of...
It was just missing that something that I've seen his other movies have, and I can't quite explain it, but I think that because it is so steeped, and I don't know if darkness is the right word, but it's kind of like how the way in which I guess grief makes everything feel opaque at times, I got that from time to time here. I still really liked it, but I just think it was missing that certain something to get it to the loved it for me.
See, that's fascinating, because I think the reason why it was so, genuinely in touch with its raw emotion is what gave it that twinkle for me.
I also wonder if it's because of our own, preferences in movies. Like, I feel like you have a big thing for character, I have a big thing for story, and I think this, in character, you got it. The characters are amazing, all of them. But the story, for me, that's maybe where I found that a little bit, it was a bit lacking for me, particularly because there were moments or elements where I was like, I want to know more. Like, for example, let's talk about Namor and that whole part of it, because I loved it. I thought it was so interesting. The fact that they took, to be honest, a pretty stupid character design with little tiny wings. With the little tiny wings on his ankles. It's kind of stupid to see, but they managed to actually make him quite scary.
He is scary. In the comics, he's always been scary.
Okay, I don't have that background knowledge, Rob. He was quite scary. I felt his power. I felt they're oh shit, they all gonna die. You know what I mean?
His intro with the sirens was...
Oh, that was actually amazing. Which also, can I say, Lake Bell, what you doing, girl? Why'd you take that role? Great scene. I think even going to the scene where they attack Wakanda, that just felt hopeless. It was so well done, and you really felt his power. I really liked exploring Talokan, and I wanted more of that. I wanted to know more about Atuna and Namora. I wanted to know more about them as characters, and I understand that maybe we're going to learn more in his own movie or in a future movie or whatever, but there was just they weren't as developed as Killmonger was. Killmonger was I would say, a flesh and blood, three-dimensional character with really like just an amazing storyline, while Namor felt like 2.5 dimensions.
See, that's interesting, because I agree that as a antagonist in the film, Killmonger was a better result. Like, you know, there's still nothing that beats his death scene in the original Black Panther for just like, oh, this film cuts deep.
Yeah.
You know? But I wouldn't say that I thought that there was anything lacking with Namor. I actually am quite on the opposite there. I felt like that the way that they fleshed out the Mesoamerican, Yucatec Mayan kind of culture.
I mean, that was cool.
Of
yeah.
Talocan was unbelievable. Like the sequence where Shuri is seeing Talocan for the first time, that in itself, because of how beautiful it was, brought me to tears. I would say this bloody science fiction, war film, fictional nonsense was more truthful to Mayan history than Apocalypto was.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Ooh, let's not talk about that. But all that aside, we should probably get into your issue with my one-word review, which is 100% correct, and no one should have an issue with it, and we could just move on, because I was 100% right, and Killmonger is in the movie!
He's dead though, so it's still
in the astral plane. It counts.
Well, you
plane.
were saying that he was going to be back alive. I was like, do not bring him back alive, keep him dead. So I would say I was more right.
No, I just said he was coming back. I knew Michael B. Jordan would be back. There was no way
You
with
were saying
Chadwick
that he was going to
Boseman.
be back as Black Panther.
Well, I mean, he's in the ancestral plane, and where did they go? Because he was one.
That's a bit of a reach.
I don't care. He's
in reality,
he's on the
he
throne.
was dead.
It doesn't matter.
I was
Vindication.
right. He was dead.
Vindication. Michael B. Jordan was in the movie.
Spoiler alert: he's dead. Okay, he's not in. He's in the movie, but he's dead.
To the final theory, and potentially the one that will cause the most arguing, which is one I had off the cuff. So we had the trailer, right? And Rob will, I'm sure, show a clip of the bit I'm talking about. The very last part of the trailer is you see someone in the Black Panther suit, okay? And I've looked at that still for a while, but when I first saw it, first of all, it seems to be the gold one. And who do we know that likes the gold Black Panther suit? And what is this saga called, Rob? Can you please enlighten me as to what this saga has been called now as of Comic-Con?
It's called the Multiverse Saga.
What was that for those in the back?
It's called the Multiverse Saga.
The Multiverse Saga. And what do we know about the multiverse? What have we already seen about the multiverse is that there's variants of every freaking character in the entire, cinematic universe. So, my theory is that given that we already know about the multiverse, and we already know about variants, and we already specifically know about variants of both T'Challa and his cousin, Killmonger, my theory is that there's a variant of Killmonger, so Michael B. Jordan will show up in the movie, even just briefly, just for a battle, whatever it is, and he will be the one donning the Black Panther suit we see in the clip. And before we get to the rating, the score was amazing, and it's definitely going to win. If it doesn't, it should
But the
definitely
last film
win.
did win at the Oscars.
Well, that's what I mean. If that one, and this is I'd say, objectively better score. We've had some excellent scores this year, I will say. I've been listening to a few. Having said that, I was brought out because of how amazing it was. That's how good the score was. I was just like, oh,
I've been listening to it on repeat.
Yeah. But you should probably go first with our final rating. But before we get into it, as always, on the screen, we have our 5.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a cold trash. Anyway.
Yes, here we go.
I think you'd cry. I think you'd cry if I said this was a cold trash.
Look,
You'd just be sad.
Maybe. But, so am I going first?
Yes.
Okay. For context, I do think the first film is better.
Yes.
So the rating that I will give this film, take what you will from that. Yeah. I think it does scrape into being a shining treasure for me.
Oh, that's nice. It's a hot soup for me.
That's
we haven't had one of these yet because we haven't had either of us go all the way to the end on the higher end.
I'm glad it's me because I've usually been the grumpy old fart.
I know. You were literally mentioning the last filming how you're the grumpy old fart and now I'm the one pulling us down. Okay, so we've got hot treasure. No, it can't be hot. So it has to be shining soup.
I think shining soup is
Shining soup.
It's a shining soup.
It's so like it's so glazed. It's so well you could see yourself in it.
To be honest, like that's perfect for me because the original Black Panther is a shining treasure.
Yeah.
And because it is a better film, I'm like, okay, am I gonna give this one a hot soup? And I'm like, no, I feel like it's stronger than a hot soup. So it's in between.
Shining soup.
It's shining soup.
It's like a broth.
Yeah.
It's a real good, like deep coloured broth, so you can see your own reflection in it.
Yes. So
like how in Lion King they look at their reflection in the water, because you know how it's just Lion King.
It's really not though. It's not. Don't listen to her. It's not like Lion King.
Like in Lion King. Anyway, we should go. Okay.
You can walk off. I'm going to sit here with my thoughts.
Oh, are you kicking me off the set?
I am.
I'll just leave then.
Hello.
Wakanda. No, I'm not going to do that.
No, I said it this time.
No, I was going to say Wakanda Forever, and then I just stopped myself from doing it.
Let's do it again.
Oh,
yeah.
fine.